Welcome to the RFP Success Show with host Lisa Rehurik, the #1 sought-after authority on RFP success. Each week, we bring you information, strategies, or resources to help you win more business through RFPs and have a little fun doing it. Let's get this week's episode started.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the RFP Success Show. I am your host, Lisa Rehurik, and we are here today with guest David Blume. He is the Senior Director of Sales for RFPIO, which is a proposal technology. We actually just had Ganesh from RFPIO on a couple of episodes ago. So we've got another member of their team here to talk to us about sales. So what we're going to talk about today is kind of the interaction of the sales team and the proposal team, because there tends to be some friction there. And both teams have very different approaches to, well, not approaches, but different roles. And so we want to talk a little bit about that. And David's got experience on both sides of the table. So David, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Lisa. You too.
Wonderful. So let's kick this off by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what it is you do now for RFPIO.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in sales despite my youthful appearance. This is my 33rd year in sales. So I've been certainly very focused on helping organizations achieve whatever business outcome it is based on the industry I'm working in. The last 15 or 16 years, it's been exclusively sales technology related. So I've been involved in sales compensation management systems, proposal management, as I am today. And today with RFPIO, I'm a member of the sales organization. Again, just working with a mix of organizations pretty much around the world, mostly US and Europe, just helping them figure out how to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of their teams. So that's what I do today.
Wonderful. Well, we're big proponents of RFPIO, and we've had you guys, I think you're the third person from RFPIO that's been on as a guest. So we love that. Ganesh, as I said, was on. And for our listeners, if you haven't heard that episode, we talked a whole lot more about the RFPIO technology in his episode. Today, we're not going to really be talking about technology, but of course, you can learn about it, and we'll give you more information on that at the end and all of that. But what I want to kind of dig right in and talk about the relationship with sales and the proposal teams, and really ask you about where is the salesperson, the sales leader, the VP of sales, whatever title that is, right? What is their motivation? What is their kind of thought process? Because if we can talk about how they think and what their priorities are and what their motivations are, I think the proposal people can better understand why they do what they do. So can we kick it off with kind of talking about that?
Yeah, it's a good starting point. I feel in a sort of weirdly unique position of sort of poacher turned gamekeeper, where I was the enemy at some point, and now I'm advocating on behalf of the proposal world. So I mean, whilst this will differ from company to company based on maybe size of organization, as head of sales, I tended to find that your focus has to be on your core mission, which is to drive revenue. So that no question sort of tends to be the guiding star on any sort of decisions you make. But taking that down a level, you're dealing with a group of individuals of varying skill sets and experience and tenure. And I think my day-to-day decision making was really geared towards how do I best organize, lead, and support a group of disparate individuals with different motivations and as I said, skill sets. So I think you could look at any organization and recognize that because of that mixture of individuals, the performance curve tends to be that traditional bell curve model. You have your sort of overachievers who will seem to succeed no matter what. You'll have your underachievers. That could be a skill issue. It could be a tenure issue. But most of the team tend to fall into the middle, that sort of core group, where they're probably performing at somewhere between 60 and 90%, for example. So as a VP of sales, I was probably most focused on how do I move the middle? How do I get an extra 10 percentage points out of those middle performing team members? And that, I think, was the key to what made me tick. Nice. That said, I mean, sales itself isn't operating in a vacuum. So whilst you're worried about your own team, you have to work closely with the rest of the organization, whether that's the marketing function, the product teams, and of course, communicating up to executives. And it's never a sort of stable environment. There's always something happening that sort of knocks you off the tracks, and you have to sort of recalibrate and reset priorities, because again, the world keeps moving, new competitors, economic factors, external influences that mean that no matter, even though your core objective is to drive revenue, my priorities were always shifting based on where the what was affecting the company's activity.
Yeah, and it's so funny, because I feel like in every company that I've ever worked in, no matter what the offering was or what the industry was, sales is kind of always off in their own world, and everybody else tends to not love them, and they get a reputation of being kind of the prima donnas, and they get whatever they want, and they don't have to follow the rules. And that's partially true, right? Because they're the ones generating the revenue. But but there's frustration there, right, between the proposal team and the sales team. Why do you think that is? Where do you think that? Do you think it's because of what you just talked about, and the kind of the different nuances between the different types of people?
I mean, to a degree, yes. I think the sort of digging down into why there is a gulf at all. It's interesting. I remember doing a sort of a straw poll of a group at a conference, and it was astonishing to me that not every proposal team even reported into sales. It was
not at all.
No more than 50. It was quite staggering. But that aside, I think most heads of sales would acknowledge conceptually that the proposal function is of assistance to them, whether that's to make their life easier, to help them drive revenue. That doesn't necessarily translate into full support. And I think the difference is one of a difference of time horizon. And I think this is the real key, is that I saw a stat, it was on a LinkedIn post somewhere, that the average tenure of a VP of sales has dropped. It was like 26 months not that long ago. It's now under 20 months.
Wow.
So the time, I know it's terrifying. So a head of sales is not only worrying about their own sort of future, but their focus is very much on this quarter or next quarter. And therefore, the investments they make in improving or moving the middle is really shaped around what's the best bang for my buck? Where do I place my bet? They can choose from investing in training or coaching, or implement some technology of some description, or change their comp plan, or focus on filling the funnel, or build a proposal team. So it's just that sort of mix of where do I place my money, and which is going to not only give me the greatest return, but which is going to give me the greatest return fastest. And I don't think they view the proposal function as being a quick win. And that's where I think the disconnect comes. Proposals is a bedrock function. It's there for the long haul, whereas the VP of sales is worried about this quarter, maybe next quarter. And I think, Lisa, that's probably where that sort of arm's length tacit support it really stems from.
That's really great input. I think, salespeople maybe look at it as overhead, which just takes away from, ultimate profit. Why do you think that people working in the proposal department struggle to get buy-in from leadership? And I ask that whether it's sales leadership or any other kind of leadership. What are your thoughts on that?
It's hard to sort of, give you a broad brush response. I mean, it's a sort of a spectrum. I mean, there are many organizations, where the function of the proposal team is truly strategic. It really is an integral part of the sales process. But sadly, that is the minority. It's maybe 10% of the market. Sadly, the overwhelming majority fall into that sort of almost seen as an operational necessity, rather than a strategic imperative. And that's what you, and again, at the other end of the spectrum, it's just a necessary evil, and that's a really hard thing to overcome. So I think that there's, I think part of the challenge, and I can look through the lens of a VP sales more than, say, the CFO, although what I have some thoughts that maybe appeal to all levels of executive management. But through the lens of a VP of sales, the common pushback is, yes, but the proposal is just part of the jigsaw. This is where we have 6, 12, 18-month sales cycles, that there are dozens of individuals involved. There are hundreds of interactions. Don't tell me the proposal is anything special. It's just part of the jigsaw.
Okay.
And there's truth to that. I mean, the best proposal in the world won't win you the deal on the spot. That's just a truism. But in the same way, a sales VP would acknowledge that you can screw up a deal through a bad demo or a bad presentation or a bad reference. You can absolutely screw up the deal through a bad proposal.
For sure, yeah.
I just don't think that's understood. And I think if you can articulate the criticality of the proposal, it's not just another selling document. It has its own importance, and it's a document that allows the sales team to encapsulate and articulate everything that you know about that engagement with that client, what their challenges are, how you are best placed to solve the problems, how you will go about that. And that surely counts for something, to not undo all that good work with a substandard proposal. I think I'm not sure that's really acknowledged and recognized the importance and the impact that a proposal can have.
Yeah, I love that. And, it's interesting as we're talking about this, and I'm thinking about something you said in the statistic that and kind of that survey that you took at the conference, and how, 50% don't report into sales. How important do you think that relationship is between the proposal team and the sales team? And it's kind of a loaded question, right? Because
it's very important. It's very important. Again, I just love to tell little anecdotes and sort of little one-off events that seem to be indicative of general patterns. But I was at another conference a while back, and of the group of 15 or so companies, most in the room acknowledged that they were not strategic. They were operationally significant, but not strategic to their sales organizations. One company said, "Oh no, we are truly strategic," and they get involved in all the sort of go no go decision making. I said, "That's terrific. So you can veto the decision to bid?" And they went, "Yeah, no, no, we can't."
So they've got a seat at the table, but they have no decision making.
Yeah, and they said, case in point, they were sort of arm twisted into bidding on something they felt was unwinnable, and of course they diverted all resources to this great big sort of elephant of an opportunity. To which the natural question was, "Did you win it?" And they said, "Of course not." I think that relationship is really important, because it's tough love to turn around to the sales team and say, based on what we know, we have no place in bidding for this. I mean, we have no relationship with this organization. We're just making the numbers at this point. So I think it's truly important to have a close relationship where there is, it may not be an equal relationship, but the proposal function is seen as a key part of the qualification process.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it tends to be one of those things that comes up a lot in proposal teams with, the larger companies or mid-size, maybe not the small businesses per se, but is that they just don't have a seat at the table. And I think it's really important, from all of my experience, and everybody that I talk to says the same thing. And so leaders, if you're listening to this, get your proposal people a seat at the table and have them involved in those conversations. It is not just about, as David, you say, that operational piece that is just, churning the proposal out. If you don't have them part of that conversation and strategy, I always say, I feel like the salespeople get the glory when the proposal team wins a proposal, but the proposal team gets blamed if they lose a proposal. And so there needs to be much more collaboration there. So I love that you, So with that, how would you suggest a proposal team build more of an internal case for the value that they deliver to get that seat at the table?
Yeah, so to a degree, it comes to that sort of acid test of does the management team view you as an operational function or something that is truly contributing to sales success. If it's the latter, you're sort of pushing against an open door, and I'm not saying that it's a given at that point, but the strategy is a little more straightforward. Sadly, the more likely outcome is you're not pushing against an open door, you're sort of pushing a rock uphill. And I think you've got to at least get that acknowledgement that a good proposal is better than a bad proposal. So if you can at least establish that, and if the answer is no, it makes no difference. You find another job. I mean, you're not gonna succeed.
I love that.
One great little again, I was, again, it sounds like I spend all my time on the road presenting at conferences. It's not strictly true, but a few years back.
I kind of want your life, David. What's going on over there?
Yes, it's not like it. Yeah, not like it was. So I was at a conference, a big sales summit, maybe 1,500 sales leaders, and I was presenting on the humble proposal to a group of sales leaders. And I had a couple of hundred people in the room, and I was, no question, judging by their body language, which was arms crossed, looking at their phones, I was the least worst option on the parallel session list. So they were there out of a sense of duress. There was no better option for them. And I could see the audience was not exactly engaged. And I told a very off-color opening joke, which sort of got their attention for a second.
I love it.
But the moment I got their attention, at least for 10 minutes, because I was the head of sales, it was my peer group. I said, let me make two statements that I know to be true. And that generally gets people to pay attention because they're intrigued. So I said, point one, win or lose, you have no idea the dollar value of the business influenced by proposal activity over the last 12 months. And the second point that I know to be true is when you find out, you will fall off your chair. And you could see a few sort of raised eyebrows, and I had their attention for a little while. The very next day, I had a gentleman come to the stand, and they said, yeah, you got my attention. I did not know the answer. He said, very alarmingly, nobody at HQ knew the answer, but we did some back of napkin math, and we think it was about $5 billion last year.
Wow.
And that emphasized to him that their proposal function, which was a thing, was under-resourced, underfunded, and not seen through the lens of a strategic driver of revenue. So I think that the answer to your question, Lisa, is if you're going to start anywhere, find out what that metric is. Well,
Yes.
And I'm talking about sales proposals, not just RFP responses, but any type of interaction where you are proposing a solution, add up the dollar value, and I think you start to see the sort of correlation. And then go back to my statement that a bad demo, everyone understands a bad demo and how that can kill a deal. Now think about the impact of a bad proposal. So look at your win rate as well. What is your win rate? What is the dollar value of this that you are influencing? And start to look at it as at least a starting point for building a case as to the strategic significance of your team.
Yeah, and even, from a leadership perspective, look at that lose percentage, because it's generally higher, to be honest, in the majority of times, right? And how can you make that smaller? Like, yes, I think focus on the win, but if you focus on the loss percentage, you can also start focusing on what are we missing? What is not aligned well? What is not working well? And a lot of times it is that correlation between, and it always shocks me that nobody really sees an RFP as a sales tool. It's a sales opportunity.
Yeah.
And, even from I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but even from a writer perspective, they'll be like, who has the most time? It's not necessarily the best writer. They'll just throw somebody in there because they have time. And I'm like, this is like a $5 million opportunity or $500,000 opportunity or whatever. So it always shocks me. The other thing that you said that I think is important is, understand what that metric is, because I think if the proposal team is going to leadership to make a case for, having a seat at the table or getting more resources or whatever that looks like, one of the things that I always say is that they have to know what's in it for them. So I can go and make my case about how this will make my life easier and do all those things to make me better, but the leader doesn't care about that. They care about what's in it for themselves and or what's in it for the company. And so with that, what kind of initiatives or projects tend to take precedence when sales leadership is making decisions? Because I think that helps to formulate the what's in it for them, in addition to that metric that you talked about.
Yeah, I mean, this is again back to the disconnect again, because you're back to that biggest return on investment fastest. Because again, if my horizon is the next quarter, I may not look at investing in the proposal function as the greatest return.
Mm-hmm.
So the head of sales is again looking at a myriad of projects that they could invest in to get a quicker return, and that's part of the problem. You're just all of a sudden one of a number of potential initiatives, and all of them are worthy, but there's only so many projects you can take on, and when you factor in the time pressure, you don't have the luxury of a 9-month runway to get something new off the ground. You really don't. And change, not just in sales organizations, but salespeople are just generally resistant to change anyway. I mean, how many times have you heard that we've invested all this money in technology A, B, or C, or we've invested in this sales methodology, and then you find out that nobody's using it? So it is just the what's in it for me really has to come down to what's in it for the individual salesperson, what's in it for the VP of sales. I think what's in it for the VP of sales is back to the point that, again, you are locked into these lengthy sales cycles. Mm-hmm. Losing a deal, a valid deal, not a random RFP fell off a truck. Let's respond and cross our fingers. But when you're in a legitimate, qualified opportunity that you've been heavily vested in for 6, 12, 18 months, you don't want to lose it because you messed up the proposal. So if you can demonstrate that you can nudge the win rate by 3, 4, 5 percentage points, I mean, that incremental revenue alone is the difference between that VP of sales making his number and keeping his job, his or her job, and just failing miserably. So it is. I think it is all about just recognizing that the proposal, there's a correlation between proposal quality and win rate. It's not causation, as I said, it is part of the overall fabric of the deal, but it must support that heroic and professional effort that has been going on for all those months. It should not undermine it.
I agree. And it's heartbreaking to lose after you put that much time and resource and energy into, the proposal alone, but 16 months, 12 months, or whatever that sales cycle is. I completely agree. So I know you've kind of shared with us some successes along the way, but do you have one particular success story about a proposal team and a sales team that worked well together?
Yeah, it's a relatively sort of small to mid-sized company that they only had about 20 sales reps and did not have a proposal function at all.
Wow.
Now that's a sort of a double whammy, because now you've got salespeople responsible for RFPs, RFIs, sales proposals, maybe supported by their sales engineers. And that's sort of a recipe for, let's just say, interesting levels of quality. So that feeds into the bad proposal argument. The double whammy is that salespeople need time to speak with their prospective clients. There are so many hours in a day where you can reach these individuals, and so anything that saps the time of those sales individuals is equally going to be detrimental to their success. So that sadly that is not uncommon for smaller organizations. So what this organization did, the catalyst for this didn't happen overnight, but they did invest in building a small proposal team of just a couple of people. And over the course of the next few months, they were able to pretty much take over the burden, particularly for RFP responses. And that had the benefit of giving time back to the sales team. But it also fed into the quality argument. And they did see a win rate. Over the next year, they saw an increase in win rate from winning one in every 4 deals to winning 1 in every 3.
Nice.
And that was a significant uptick, even for a relatively small company. That was a significant uptick, which more than paid for the investment in that proposal function. So I think there are many other sort of cases like that where that just relieving the burden is again not just a time thing, but a quality improvement as well.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great story. I love that. And you know what's kind of interesting too is all of the indirect money that is lost that is hard to measure. So if you take the salesperson off the streets to write the proposal, like what other sales were not happening because of that? Not just the fact that maybe they were not the best person to be assigned to this particular proposal or to be writing it.
Agreed. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got, well, that's your double whammy, right? You've got
Yeah.
a double whammy there too. So
Yeah.
great success story. Thanks. Do you have any other advice? I mean, you've given us some great advice here, and I love the idea of really honing in on, 2 or 3 percentage point improvement and kind of putting some dollar amount to that to make your case. But what other advice do you have for how our listeners can advance their careers and expand their skill sets? So kind of outside of just talking about how they can get leadership buy-in, but how do they continue to grow and move forward with their careers?
Yeah, I mean, the great news is, the proposal function is a profession. And there is a wealth of talent and there are a wealth of resources out there to help anybody, whether they are starting out for the first time in the proposal function or they are a career professional and looking to hone their skills. There are specialist training and consulting firms like your own. There are technology vendors like us who sort of have technology aimed at sort of improving efficiencies. And last but not least, the APMP, the Association of Proposal Management Professionals.
Yes.
It still astounds me, Lisa, that they've been around for 30 years. It still astounds me that maybe 1 in 3 people I speak to in the proposal world aren't even aware of the APMP.
Right?
It's terrifying, but it's a professional organization of 10,000 plus members. If you're not familiar with it, search it out and join. It's really inexpensive. It's an organization, association focused on best practice, skills development, career development, skills accreditation. They have phenomenal conferences and local chapters where people of like minds and roles get together to share good practice, avoid pitfalls, and really advance the profession. So there's a great amount of help out there to take you to that next point. And I've worked with people who have absolutely furthered their career starting out in the proposal function, and through the success of that function have been promoted within to very senior levels. So it is, there truly is a career path within the proposal team.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for that. And I love the plug for APMP. I'm a huge APMP supporter. I am chair of the Valley of the Sun chapter here in Phoenix and on a national committee as well. So I agree with you. APMP has some great resources out there. And, we got to take the bulls by the horn ourselves and get the opportunity to learn. There's a really cool thing on APMP that helps them even build a business case for going to conference or getting a membership, getting the company to pay for the membership. So for all the listeners out there, if you're like, oh, they'd never support that, they will if you can give them the right business case. So
yeah.
Great plug for that. All right, David. So this has been really great. I want to give listeners an opportunity to connect with you or also learn more about RFPIO if maybe they didn't get connected on Ganesh's interview. So how can we learn more about you or learn more about RFPIO and connect to you?
I mean, connecting with me, I would sort of encourage people just to connect with me on LinkedIn or by email. Our email addresses are fairly simple. I'm david@rfpio.com.
Nice.
If you want to find out more about the company in general, I think best way would be to visit our website. There's numerous places on the website to request further information, and a member of our team will be happy to sort of talk to you and see how and if we can help.
Wonderful. And you guys have a great team that does a lot of good content. So there's great articles and stuff out on your website too. So for those of you who want to continue to learn more and hone your skills, there's great articles out there on the RFPIO site. So, all right, David, well, thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate your insight. It's great to get insight from somebody that's been in sales leadership that can help kind of formulate, hey, how do we need to be looking at this differently and how can we really step up and get our seat at the table by formulating things the right way. So we appreciate your insights.
Pleasure. Thanks so much, Lisa, for the opportunity.
All right, thanks. Everybody, as always, you've been listening to the RFP Success Show. I am your host, Lisa Reherik. If you love our show, we would love for you to take a couple of minutes and rate it on whichever platform you listen to it on. We appreciate that in advance. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you back here again next time.
You have been listening to the RFP Success Show with RFP expert Lisa Reherik, author of the RFP Success Book. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, make sure you click the subscribe button so you don't miss a show. And thanks for spending time with us today.